and welcome to Caesar Snack Sandwich. Today I have a quick little video on Cleopatra. Now, this is a solidly concentrated liquidity DEX on Mantle. It's kind of very based on Remises. So if you know what's going on in Remises, you'll know most of what I'm going to say. But there is a little bit of innovation in here that you should probably wonder about, and that's this xCLEO. I'll talk about this xCLEO near the end of this video, so I'm sorry if you know everything I'm about to say first, then you kind of got to stick around or try to jump ahead until I start talking about that. So as usual, I've read through the docs. I've actually played around with this. I have some positions open to kind of test it and stuff like that. And I'll say that the user experience of actually, making positions, adjusting the positions as a point of like a concentrated liquidity. It's quite pleasant. It's smooth. It's easy. It's fast. It's responsive. Now, I'm not sure what the TVL is right now, but so maybe as the TVL grows, that experience might deteriorate, or it might not. I don't know. But I've read through the docs, and I'm going to use the docs to explain some of the innovations here, and I'll assume that you kind of understand what ve33 is and what concentrated liquidity positions are. And if you don't, then the docs does a pretty good job of talking you through the fundamentals of what those things are. So I would suggest you to kind of check that out. Okay, so here we are on the docs. A few of the things that are special, or that are, I'll not call them unique, but a few things that I want to highlight about this are some of these specific things. I will jump through each one of them and talk about it. So here at Cleopatra, I assume the same is the same. I assume the same is the same for Remises, but anyways, at Cleopatra, they have these V1 boosts as well as concentrated liquidity boosting as well. So if you hold NFTs, then you can get a boost on your emissions that you get for providing liquidity to these pools. Okay, so this kind of sentence kind of sums up what you're looking at. It says for every percentage of liquidity in the pool, you need an equivalent percentage of all VE attached to that pool in order to maintain your 2.5x boost. So if you have 1% of the liquidity, then you need to have 1% of the VE attached to that pool or more, and then you will have 2.5% boost of your rewards. Now, I believe the same it's the same for concentrated liquidity. If you kind of go through the liquidity tab here, you will see that obviously concentrated liquidity is the popular one. That people are most likely to use. So anyhow, boosting. Okay, some of the solidly dexes have removed boosting and so forth. They also have maintained this dilution protection. So in Cleopatra, it starts at 25%, and every epoch it raises by 1% to 50%. So basically, every epoch, whenever they mint these CLEO tokens to give as rewards, they mint an additional 25% and give it to the VE NFTs. So they add it to your NFT, okay? And then, as like it says here, every epoch it'll go up to almost 50%, okay? Moving on, so there's some ideas here about the concentrated liquidity gauges, and this is the important part down here. So the concentrated liquidities determine rewards based on several factors. So there are different solutions out there for incentivizing concentrated liquidity, and most of them like look at the concentrated liquidity positions and kind of assess whether or not they're being beneficial or not, and then they reward you for them. I have a video on Merkle that kind of has a similar system but does it slightly different. You can watch that video. It's on my YouTube. But here they're gonna look at a few aspects here. Okay, so they're gonna look at this delta, so upper and lower of the user's position. So the way I'm kind of understanding this, I could be wrong, is that the wider you make your range, then the less rewards you're getting. So they want people to keep tight ranges, even though the price is like likely to leave your range and you have to rebalance, but all your liquidity is kind of inside that range, right? So obviously the position size, so like the more you have in reference to other people, the more rewards you will get. That's just obvious. And then position utilization, whether it's in range or not. If you fall out of range, I believe you stop getting rewards, but I'm not 100% certain. It doesn't clearly say that, but based on my tests, whenever I go to range, I was just, I didn't check if I was still getting rewards. I just immediately rebalanced and brought myself back into range in my test. So this is something you can ask them. But anyhow, so this is kind of what we're looking at. Like usually the Merkle solution kind of looks at fees, the fees that were produced. So as fees were produced, then obviously it was in range because it was producing fees. So it's slightly different in here. So you can kind of consider that when you're doing that. So it does talk here a little bit about the Cleopatra's boosting, and it has these different tranches. So as you can see, the boosting is a little bit different here than what it was for the regular gauge boosting, right? So it says here there are two types of tranches for the rewards. 40% of the emissions are allocated to the base tranche, and 60% are allocated to the boost tranche. So when rewards are given to the concentrated liquidity, what they do is they take 40% and they give it to everybody. And then they take 60% of those rewards that are supposed to go to that gauge and they give it to the boost. So it kind of works out to be like a 1x for the people who have no boost, and then a 1.5x on top of that for the people who do have boosts. And obviously if you have boosts, then you're also in the base yield, so you're getting 2.5x, and that's how they get that 2.5x from there. So if you don't understand this, you can kind of pause the video, read this very carefully, or come here and check out the docs yourself. Okay. The last thing that's quite special about this, and they do say that like it's a new solution developed by the Cleopatra team. So this is kind of the highlight. This is the xCLEO, and this is interesting stuff. Okay, so basically when you get rewarded, let's see if I can share the rewards here. If you go to xCLEO, you can kind of see the rewards and the options here. You can vest, you can convert to VE, or you can instant exit. So let's go back to the docs here and talk about, so how is it obtained? You obtain them through, the gauges. Like some of like the pools that I was testing were clearly not getting 50-50. So although it says default ratio is 50% CLEO, 50% xCLEO, the ones I was getting more xCLEO than I was CLEO. So the team, it does say here that the team and the governance can adjust these ratios. So basically what you're going to get, what this means is every time you get rewards on your gauges, some of them will be liquid tokens and some of them will be these X tokens. And I'll explain how these X tokens work in a second, right? But so the idea here is that they can give liquid tokens to the gauges that they believe are not just mercenary or are actually providing value to the system, whereas they can give more xCLEO to the gauges that are more mercenary. So like maybe like a stable like two stable coins in a pool or something like this, like a correlated liquidity pools and stuff like that. Okay, so moving on, these are the three options that you can do. So it says instant exit to CLEO, and you take a 50% haircut. So if you're going to here and you go to instant exit, let's say you had 100x, then you would get 100 CLEO, and in this case it's actually going to swap them for you because it's asking for a mantle, right? So it's kind of like a zap. But the idea here is that like you get, if you have 100 CLEO, if you have 100 xCLEO, you will get 50 CLEO. You take that haircut, okay? And I'll talk a little bit here about where does that haircut go. The instant exit to VE, so you can instead get 1-to-1. So 100 xCLEO will give you 100 VE CLEO. Now this is just like basically a lock time. Like you can lock your CLEO into VE CLEO and use it to boost your positions, as well as vote on bribes like a normal solidly or ve33 DEX. Okay. Vesting a VE CLEO. So this is interesting. So if you do have these xCLEOs, you can set up the vesting. So you can start the vesting, and then for the first 14 days, you can decide to cancel your vest. Okay. After 14 days, you cannot cancel your vest. It's actually vesting has started. Now it's a linear thing from up to 120 days. So if you leave your vesting there for 120 days, then you will your xCLEO will be converted to CLEO 1-to-1. So every day you get less and less. If you had 120 xCLEO, and you waited 100 days, then you would get 100 CLEO. So you would lose those 20. So here's another haircut, another penalty for exiting early. It's very similar to this one here. Okay. Now, this is this flywheel. This is what I was talking about when I said, where does that exit penalty go? Basically, those exit penalties are not like, they're going to be used to bribe the pools that are the best for the ecosystem. So maybe core pools, or maybe the CLEO pool to deepen the liquidity of that CLEO pool, and so forth. So that's pretty much it for today. Like, obviously there's a lot more here. You can come, you can check out the uh, the LGE, like the liquidity generation event, the pre-sale, tokenomics and stuff like that. All that stuff you can kind of dig in here deeper. You can look at the license. If this is tech that you want to try to use, you have to use the license. You have to contact Remises for some of this tech. Okay, so that's it for today. I hope this has been useful and interesting, and thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.